Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever stopped and wondered what really controls you? You might say nothing, but watch yourself closely. A single insult can ignite your anger. A passing fear can paralyze your decision. A desire can make you betray your own principles. If these things can command you, then who is truly in charge, you or the storm inside you? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes you will see how mastering yourself is the only path to true freedom. Without it, you are a puppet pulled by invisible strings. But with it, you become untouchable, unshakable, unstoppable. That is why you must hear this through to the very end. The illusion of control is perhaps one of the greatest tricks the mind plays on us. Most people go through life believing they are in charge, that they are freely making decisions, and that their path is entirely in their own hands. Yet if you look more deeply, you'll see that much of what you call your choice is simply the product of impulses, conditioning, and unconscious reactions. You may think you are steering the ship of your life, but more often than not, you are being carried by the current. And this is why so many people feel restless, unsatisfied, or powerless. They are not really choosing. They are being chosen by forces within themselves that they do not understand. Take a simple example. Someone insults you. In that moment, anger rises, and you feel compelled to strike back, either with words or with silence charged with bitterness. Now, if you were in true control, would you automatically respond that way? Or is it more accurate to say that the insult pressed a button and your reaction was triggered? You might believe you are choosing to be angry, but in truth, you are acting out a program installed in you long ago by pride, ego, and fear of being disrespected. The illusion of control is shattered when you realize that much of your life is lived in this way, reacting, not choosing. Desire, too, controls more than we realize. The craving for recognition, for pleasure, for comfort, these pull you in directions that often conflict with your deeper values. You tell yourself you are making choices, but look closely. Are you really choosing, or are you being led by the nose by desires you cannot resist? You buy things you do not need, chase relationships that drain you, pursue approval from people who do not even matter. At the surface, it looks like choice. But underneath it is compulsion. True control would mean being able to say yes or no to a desire with equal strength. But for most, desire speaks and they obey. Fear is another hidden master. It paralyzes you before decisions, whispers warnings, paints pictures of failure, rejection, or loss. You imagine that you are weighing your options carefully, but often you are simply following fear's command to stay small, stay quiet, stay safe. Think about how many times you've avoided taking a risk, not because it wasn't right for you, but because fear gripped your mind and dictated the outcome. In those moments, did you really control your life, or did fear control it for you? Even habits are rulers disguised as servants. You tell yourself you are comfortable with your routines, but routines often run your life more than you run them. You wake, eat, work, scroll, sleep, all on autopilot. The illusion of control keeps you believing you are choosing each step, when in reality the pattern has been etched into you so deeply that it operates without awareness. To break free from this, you first have to see how mechanical you become. You cannot master what you do not notice. Conditioning from society, family, and culture is another powerful force. From childhood, you were told what success looks like, what love should feel like, what you must avoid, and what you must chase. These beliefs shaped you quietly, embedding themselves into your mind until they became invisible. And so you chase careers, relationships, and lifestyles, not because you truly want them, but because the world told you that you should. You may feel like you are freely making choices, but step back and ask, whose voice are you obeying? If it is not your own, then how much control do you really have? The most dangerous part of this illusion is that it blinds you. Because you feel in control, you do not question what drives you. You live inside a cage, but the cage is invisible, so you never even try to escape. You justify your reactions, defend your desires, rationalize your fears, and call it all who you are. But what if who you are has been hijacked by forces you never examined? What if you have been living someone else's story while believing it was your own? The beginning of self-mastery is to see through this illusion, to pause in those moments when anger, fear, or desire pulls you, and to recognize, this is not me, this is a program running itself. That single moment of awareness breaks the spell. When you can see the strings that move you, you begin to loosen them. Awareness is like light. When it shines on the dark corners of your mind, you can no longer be tricked in the same way. Real control, then, is not about forcing life to bend to your will, but about freeing yourself from the invisible hands that have been steering you. It is not about domination over others, but liberation from the chains within. You cannot stop the waves of emotion, but you can realize you are not the wave. You are the ocean that contains them. And when you know yourself as the ocean, no passing wave can control you. When the illusion of control is broken, you step into a deeper kind of freedom. You no longer live as a puppet pulled by strings of fear, desire, or conditioning. You begin to act from a place of clarity, intention, and awareness. And from this space, life is no longer something that happens to you. It is something you consciously create. The first enemy on the path to self-mastery is not the world outside you. It is not the people who misunderstand you, nor the circumstances that seem unfair, nor even the obstacles life places in your way. The greatest enemy is the untrained mind. Left to itself, it becomes restless, noisy, and chaotic, constantly throwing you into confusion. It is like a wild horse, powerful, yes, but dangerous if not guided. And yet most people live their lives riding this wild horse, being dragged wherever it chooses to go, believing they are in control, when in truth they are being carried by impulses, fears, and endless chatter. Think about how often your thoughts drift without your permission. You sit down to focus on something meaningful, and suddenly your mind pulls you into memories of the past or into worries about the future. You may be trying to read a book, work on a project, or even just enjoy a moment of peace, but the mind refuses to stay still. It insists on replaying conversations, imagining problems, or entertaining desires. If you cannot control where your attention goes, can you honestly say you are in charge of your life? An untrained mind is also a master of illusions. It convinces you that your thoughts are truths, when in reality they are often just echoes of conditioning and fragments of imagination. The mind tells you stories. You're not good enough. They don't respect you. Something terrible will happen. And because you have not trained it, you believe these stories without question. You live inside narratives that were never real to begin with, suffering from fears that exist only in imagination. The enemy here is not the external world, but your own inability to see that your thoughts are not facts. Emotions, too, are deeply tied to the untrained mind. When the mind latches onto a negative thought, it fuels anger, sadness, or anxiety. When it fixates on desire, it fuels greed and restlessness. And because most people identify with their thoughts and emotions, they believe, this is who I am. But the truth is different. Your thoughts and emotions are visitors. They come and go. You are the host, yet the untrained mind makes the visitor into the master, and you live as a slave to moods and impulses. The danger is that the untrained mind is persuasive. It doesn't just whisper, sometimes it shouts, and you obey. It pushes you into saying things you regret, into making decisions out of fear, into reacting instead of responding. Many lives are derailed not by external disasters, but by the inability to master inner chaos. How many relationships are broken because someone could not control their anger? How many opportunities are missed because someone was paralyzed by doubt? How many dreams are abandoned because the mind whispered, you can't do it? To overcome this first enemy, awareness is your greatest weapon. You must learn to step back and watch the mind at work. Instead of becoming every thought, you become the observer of thought. This shift is subtle but powerful. When anger arises, you notice, here is anger. When fear arises, you notice, here is fear. By naming it, By observing it, you separate yourself from it. And in that moment of separation, you take back your power. The wild horse is still there, but now you are holding the reins. Training the mind is not about silencing it completely. The mind is a tool, and like any tool, it can be destructive or constructive depending on how it is used. To train the mind is to sharpen it, to direct it, to ensure it serves you rather than controls you. This requires discipline, patience, and practice. It requires moments of stillness where you simply watch the flow of thoughts without being pulled into them. It requires intentional focus where you direct your attention like a beam of light instead of letting it scatter aimlessly. When the mind is trained, it becomes an ally instead of an enemy. It allows you to think clearly, to see through illusions, to act with purpose instead of impulse. It becomes the servant of your higher self rather than the ruler of your destiny. And in this, the first great battle of self-mastery is won, because if you cannot master your own mind, nothing else in life can truly be mastered. The untrained mind thrives in distraction, in fear, in craving. The trained mind thrives in clarity, in presence, in discipline. One enslaves you, the other liberates you. The difference lies in whether you are willing to confront this first enemy, to look it in the eye and declare, "You do not own me." Fear does not hold them back. Loss does not break them. They experience the full spectrum of emotions, but like a skilled sailor, they use the winds to move forward instead of being capsized. That is the essence of freedom. This freedom changes the way you live. Relationships become healthier because you no longer speak from blind anger or cling from desperate need. Work becomes more purposeful because fear no longer dictates what risks you take. Life itself becomes lighter because you are no longer dragged down by emotional weight. You still feel, but you are not chained. To break free requires practice. Every situation is an opportunity. When anger stirs, practice restraint. When fear arises, practice courage. When desire burns, practice patience. Slowly, the chains that once seemed unbreakable begin to weaken. And one day, you look back and realize you are no longer a prisoner. Freedom from emotional chains does not mean life becomes dull or empty. On the contrary, it becomes richer. When you are no longer enslaved, you can truly feel emotions without fear of them. You can embrace joy without clinging, face sorrow without collapsing, welcome desire without being consumed. You can experience the fullness of life as it flows, knowing that nothing has the power to control you. This is the secret of true mastery. It is not about denying your humanity, but rising above enslavement. It is about using emotions as tools rather than being used by them. It is about living as the ocean, not the wave. And when you reach that state, life no longer pulls you by chains. You walk freely, untouchable and unshakable, because you finally belong to yourself. To detach from external validation is one of the most liberating steps towards self-mastery, yet it is also one of the hardest. From the moment you are born, you are trained to seek approval. As a child, you crave the smile of your parents, the praise of teachers, the acceptance of peers. This craving for validation embeds itself so deeply that by the time you are grown, you cannot separate your worth from the opinions of others. You measure yourself by applause, by recognition, by how many people like you, notice you, or admire you. And though it feels natural, this is one of the most powerful chains that binds you. The danger of external validation lies in its instability. It is never permanent, never guaranteed, and never fully in your control. Today people may praise you, tomorrow they may criticize you, and the next day they may forget you altogether. If your self-worth rises and falls with their opinions, then you will always live in fear. Fear of losing approval, fear of disappointing others, fear of being unseen. And when fear rules your heart, you are not free. You may appear successful, but beneath the surface, you are a slave to the judgments of others. Think about how often people shape their lives around what others might think. They choose careers not because they love them, but because society applauds them. They buy things not because they need them, but because they want to impress. They hide their true feelings, silence their voices, and betray their values, all for the sake of belonging. And though they may win approval, they lose something far greater, themselves. When you seek validation, you hand over your power. You give others the ability to decide whether you feel good or bad, confident or insecure, worthy or unworthy. You let their words, their gestures, their silence dictate your inner state. It is like living on a leash. You can only go as far as others allow. And if they pull back, you retreat. You believe you are free, but really you are tethered. Detachment from external validation does not mean you stop caring about people. It does not mean you become cold or indifferent. It simply means you no longer depend on their approval for your sense of self. You listen, you respect, you consider. But at the core, you know who you are, and that knowledge is unshaken by applause or criticism. You do not live to impress, you live to express. This detachment brings an extraordinary strength. Imagine walking into a room and not wondering what anyone thinks of you. Imagine making decisions guided only by your inner compass, not by fear of rejection or hope of praise. Imagine speaking your truth without trembling over how it will be received. This is not arrogance, it is freedom. It is the ability to live authentically without bending to the shifting winds of opinion. The path to this freedom begins with awareness. Notice how often you look outward for validation. Notice the subtle ways it controls you. Checking for likes on a screen, waiting for compliments, replaying conversations in your head to see if you sounded clever or foolish. Notice the tension that comes when someone disapproves of you and how quickly you try to defend, explain, or please. From that declaration begins a journey of transformation. In truth, the mind is not your enemy by nature. It only becomes so when left neglected. Just as fire can warm your home or burn it to the ground, the mind can elevate you or destroy you. The choice is yours, but the choice requires awareness. And so, the path to freedom begins here with the training of the restless, noisy, persuasive mind. Only when you master this inner battlefield can you stand tall, unshaken by the storms of life. To break free from emotional chains, you must first recognize how deeply they bind you. Emotions are powerful forces: anger, fear, jealousy, desire, grief, even excitement. They rise suddenly, consume the mind, and steer your actions before you have time to think. In those moments, you are not free. You are caught in chains, dragged by impulses that feel irresistible. And though emotions are part of being human, to be ruled by them is to live like a prisoner, always at the mercy of inner storms. Imagine anger. One word, one look, one small gesture from another person can spark it. Your chest tightens, your face heats, and without pausing, you lash out. For a few seconds, you feel powerful, but afterward you see the damage, broken relationships, wounded pride, regret that lingers. The truth is, anger was holding the chains, and you were being pulled like a captive. In that moment, you were not the master of yourself. You were mastered by emotion. Fear operates in subtler ways, but its chains are often stronger. It does not scream, it whispers. It convinces you not to take the leap, not to risk rejection, not to speak your truth. Fear keeps you in familiar places, even when they suffocate you, because it tells you that the unknown is worse. How many lives are left unlived because fear held the key to the cage? People say they chose safety, but in truth, fear chose for them. Desire is another chain, but it disguises itself as freedom. When you crave something deeply, a person, wealth, recognition, you tell yourself you are chasing happiness. Yet, in reality, the craving owns you. The moment you do not have what you desire, you are restless, anxious, incomplete. You live not in freedom, but in dependence, waiting for the next fix. Desire unchecked is not passion, it is bondage. The chains are not only in negative emotions, even joy can enslave you if you cling to it. When you demand that happiness remain, when you fear its loss, you suffer the moment it begins to fade. Life is change, and emotions are waves. They rise and fall naturally. The problem comes when you identify with them, when you believe you are the wave instead of the ocean beneath it. That is when the chains tighten and you lose yourself. Breaking free from emotional chains does not mean suppressing or denying emotions. Suppression only strengthens them, driving them deeper into the shadows where they gain even more power. To break free is to see emotions for what they are, temporary states, not eternal truths. You watch them rise, you feel their presence, and you allow them to pass without clinging or resisting. Like clouds drifting across the sky, they come and go. You are the sky, vast, unchanging, unbound. Awareness is the first step. When anger rises, notice it. This is anger. When fear comes, observe. This is fear. Do not say, I am angry or I am afraid, for those words make you one with the emotion. Instead, create a distance. You are the observer, not the prisoner. This simple act loosens the chains. The second step is choice. Once you recognize the emotion, you realize you do not have to obey it. Anger may urge you to shout, but you can remain silent. Fear may tell you to retreat, but you can step forward anyway. Desire may pull you towards something destructive, but you can choose to walk away. Each time you choose consciously, the chains grow weaker. Each time you react blindly, they grow stronger. Mastery lies in this choice. The third step is transformation. Emotions are not enemies. They are energy. Anger can become strength to defend truth. Fear can become caution that protects you. Desire can become passion that fuels creation. But only when you are free from their chains can you harness their energy. Otherwise, they use you, and you remain a servant. Consider a person who has mastered themselves emotionally. They are not cold or detached. They feel deeply, but they are not owned by feelings. Insults do not disturb their peace. By noticing, you begin to loosen the grip. The next step is to shift your focus inward. Instead of asking, what do they think of me? Ask, what do I think of myself? Instead of asking, do they approve? Ask, do I approve? The voice you must learn to honor is your own. When your actions align with your deepest values, when you live in integrity with yourself, you no longer need applause. You know your worth because you embody it. But this inner approval requires courage. It is easier to chase the comfort of external praise than to face the silence of standing alone. Detachment means some will not understand you, some will criticize, some will even reject you. And yet, in that rejection, you discover your strength. For the first time, you see that you do not crumble when approval is withheld. You remain. And in remaining, you realize you were never dependent after all. One of the greatest illusions is that external validation brings happiness. In truth, it brings only dependence. Real joy comes when you are free to live as yourself, unshaken by opinions. This joy is quieter but deeper. It is not the shallow thrill of being noticed. It is the steady peace of knowing you are enough without being noticed at all. Detachment also allows you to love more purely. When you no longer seek people for validation, you can see them for who they are, not for what they can give you. Relationships stop being transactions of approval and become connections of authenticity. You give love without expectation, and you receive love without dependency. This is the freedom of standing whole within yourself. External validation is like chasing shadows. No matter how hard you run, you can never grasp it. And even when you catch a glimpse, it vanishes as quickly as it appeared. But when you stop chasing, when you turn inward, you find something far more solid, your own approval, your own truth, your own worth. This cannot be taken from you because it does not belong to anyone else. To detach from external validation is to cut one of the strongest chains. It is to reclaim your power from the hands of others and place it back where it belongs, with you. Once you achieve this, you no longer need the world to tell you who you are. You know it, And in that knowing, you are unshakable, untouchable, and finally free. Self-discipline is often misunderstood. Many think of it as punishment, restriction, or the denial of pleasure. They see it as something harsh, something that strips life of joy. But in truth, self-discipline is not about punishing yourself. It is about aligning your actions with your highest purpose. It is the art of directing your energy instead of letting it scatter. It is not a prison, but a form of liberation, because without discipline, you are at the mercy of impulses, distractions, and fleeting desires. With discipline, you take the throne of your own life. Consider for a moment the life without discipline. You wake when you feel like it, eat what you crave, work only when motivated, and chase whatever distraction arises. At first, it feels like freedom. No rules, no boundaries, no structure. But soon you find yourself enslaved to habits that weaken you, desires that drain you, and a lack of direction that leaves you restless. You cannot trust yourself because you break your own promises. You cannot respect yourself because you know you are being pulled rather than choosing. Without discipline, you become a wanderer in your own life, blown by every passing wind. Now imagine a life with discipline. You rise when you said you would, not because you felt like it, but because you gave your word to yourself. You direct your energy toward what matters most, rather than wasting it on meaningless distractions. You eat not for indulgence, but for nourishment. You act not when convenient, but when necessary. At first, it feels like sacrifice, but slowly it becomes strength. You discover a new kind of freedom, the freedom of being able to trust yourself. When you are disciplined, you know that if you set a goal, you will follow through. That certainty builds confidence, and confidence builds momentum. Discipline is not about denying pleasure. It is about choosing long-term fulfillment over short-term gratification. The undisciplined mind always wants comfort now. Comfort food, comfort entertainment, comfort habits. But comfort now often becomes pain later. Discipline is the wisdom to reverse this cycle, to endure some effort now so you can enjoy freedom later. It is choosing the path of growth over the path of ease, because you know that ease may feel good in the moment but leaves you weak in the long run. Self-discipline is also the bridge between intention and reality. Many people have dreams, visions, and desires for their future, but without discipline, those dreams remain fantasies. You can visualize success endlessly, but if you cannot discipline yourself to act, to persist, to endure discomfort, then nothing manifests. Discipline is what takes the dream from your mind and carves it into the world. Without it, even the most brilliant ideas die unborn. But discipline is not meant to be harsh. It is not about beating yourself into submission. True discipline is born from love for yourself, from respect for who you are becoming. You are not disciplining yourself because you are unworthy. You are disciplining yourself because you are worthy of a greater life. Every act of discipline is a statement. I believe in who I am becoming more than I believe in the temptation of the moment. When you see it this way, discipline is no longer heavy. It becomes an act of devotion. It is important to understand that discipline does not mean rigidity. Life is flexible, and so must discipline be. The point is not to force yourself into perfection, but to create a structure that empowers you. Discipline is the balance between firmness and compassion. It is being strict enough to hold yourself accountable, but wise enough to know when rest, change, or adaptation is necessary. A rigid discipline breaks, but a living discipline grows with you. Another truth about discipline is that it multiplies over time. Each time you keep a promise to yourself, your self-trust deepens. Each time you resist an impulse and choose alignment, your strength increases. The small daily acts accumulate, and one day you realize you are no longer the same person. You are stronger, clearer, more grounded. Discipline has transformed you quietly, steadily, like water shaping stone. It also creates a kind of inner peace. The undisciplined life is full of chaos, unfinished tasks, broken promises, wasted time, constant guilt. But with discipline comes order. Your mind becomes calmer because you know you are living with purpose. You stop doubting yourself because your actions align with your values. And in that alignment, you find serenity. Discipline is not the enemy of freedom. It is the foundation of it. Without discipline, you are controlled by impulses, habits, and desires. With discipline, you are free to direct your life as you choose. Without discipline, freedom is an illusion. With discipline, freedom becomes reality. Every time you choose discipline, you are choosing yourself. You are saying no to the chains of comfort and yes to the strength of growth. You are refusing to be controlled by the easy path and insisting on carving the higher path. This is not punishment. This is power. This is how you master yourself. And in mastering yourself, you discover that nothing outside of you has the power to control you. Self-mastery is not simply about controlling your impulses in the moment. It is about cultivating awareness so deeply that you no longer become a prisoner of them. Most people live their lives in a kind of sleepwalking state, reacting to whatever pulls at their attention. A thought arises, they follow it. An emotion stirs, they obey it. A craving appears, they chase it. And without realizing, their entire existence becomes dictated by external forces that they believe are internal. The key is to understand that urges, desires, and thoughts are like clouds passing in the sky. They are not permanent. They do not define you, and they only control you when you mistake them for yourself. Mastering yourself begins with the recognition that you are not your impulses. You are the awareness behind them. The untrained mind constantly seeks immediate satisfaction. It wants comfort, validation, escape, and distraction. And because the modern world is built to feed these cravings, many never even recognize they are being controlled. Your phone buzzes and you grab it without thought. A negative comment arrives and anger rises in you like a reflex. An old memory comes back and you drown in sorrow as if the past is happening all over again. Each of these moments is an opportunity to practice mastery, to pause and ask, am I choosing this or is this choosing me? That question is a gateway to freedom because self-mastery is not about suppression. It is about conscious choice. It is the ability to let something pass without having to act on it. The more you can do this, the less anything outside of you can pull your strings. But mastery is not achieved through force. If you try to suppress your emotions or deny your thoughts, you only give them more energy. To master yourself means to observe them with calm detachment. When anger rises, notice how it feels in the body, the heat in the chest, the quickening of breath, the tightening in the jaw. By observing instead of reacting, you interrupt the automatic cycle that controls most people. When a craving arises, do not immediately indulge. Watch it. Notice how it builds, peaks, and then fades like a wave. The mind begins to learn that impulses are not commands, they are merely suggestions. Some you can accept, some you can decline. This recognition alone creates immense freedom because suddenly you are no longer a servant to habit, but the master of your own energy. Discipline also plays a vital role here, but not discipline in the sense of harsh self-punishment. Discipline is a form of love, a structure you build so that you can direct your life with clarity. Without it, you drift. With it, you shape your days intentionally. For example, when you set the discipline of waking early, of training your body, of feeding your mind, you create an environment where impulses have less control. You are already directing your energy before distractions have the chance to dictate it. Discipline does not mean rigidity. It means setting priorities and guarding them. It means valuing long-term freedom over short-term pleasure. Every time you choose discipline, you strengthen the muscle of mastery. You remind yourself that you decide how your life flows, not random whims. The greatest form of mastery is not found in control, but in surrender. When you stop fighting reality, you stop being controlled by it. Think of how often people are tormented because life does not match their expectations. They resist change, resist uncertainty, resist discomfort. But resistance is a chain. The moment you learn to flow with life rather than against it, you are untouchable. External events can shake the surface, but your center remains still. A mastered self is like a mountain. Winds can howl, storms can rage, but the mountain does not bow to them. In the same way, when you accept life as it is, without clinging or resisting, you free yourself from the grip of circumstances. Nothing outside can enslave the one who has made peace within. Self-mastery also requires honesty. You cannot pretend to be strong while hiding from your weaknesses. You must face your fears, your insecurities, your patterns. Most people run from these shadows, covering them with distraction, noise, or false positivity. But the shadows only grow darker when ignored. To master yourself is to turn inward with courage, to acknowledge the parts of you that are vulnerable, angry, jealous, or afraid. When you look them in the eye without judgment, you begin to integrate them. They no longer control you from the shadows because you have brought them into the light of awareness. Honesty with oneself is the foundation of all true strength. At the heart of all this lies awareness. Without awareness, there is no mastery, only reaction. But with awareness, every reaction can become a choice. You can choose patience instead of anger, calm instead of panic, discipline instead of indulgence. You may not control the world, but you can control the way you dance with it. And in that, there is immense power. Because the person who has mastered themselves cannot be manipulated, cannot be provoked, cannot be enslaved by fear or desire. They are free, not because the world has become easy, but because they have become unshakable. Self-mastery is a lifelong journey, not a destination. You will slip, you will fall, you will forget yourself in moments. Each time you return to awareness, each time you choose clarity over compulsion, you strengthen your freedom. Over time, this becomes your natural state. You stop living as a puppet pulled by unseen strings, and you start living as the author of your own story. And when you reach this point, nothing controls you, not anger, not fear, not desire, not circumstance. You live as the master of yourself, and in that mastery, you discover the deepest kind of peace. Most people search for freedom in the outside world, but the truth is, the only lasting freedom is the one you carve within yourself. To master yourself so nothing controls you means learning to stop being enslaved by the constant noise of the mind, the unpredictable swings of emotion, and the endless cravings that pull you in 1,000 directions. Imagine how many decisions in your life have not been conscious choices but reactions. Snapping in anger because someone insulted you, overspending because a desire flashed across your mind, chasing validation because silence felt unbearable. Each of these is a subtle form of control. The real chains are not physical. They are invisible patterns that hold your spirit hostage. Breaking these chains does not require force, but understanding, a deep recognition of what you truly are beneath the surface. The mind is like a restless sea, waves rising and falling without pause. Most people identify with these waves and believe themselves to be the storm. But you are not the waves. You are the ocean beneath them, vast and unshaken. When you forget this, every ripple disturbs you. When you remember it, nothing can control you. Thoughts may come, but you no longer mistake them for commands. Emotions may rise, but you no longer let them drive your decisions blindly. The cravings of the body may whisper, but you can choose when to listen and when to let them pass. This is freedom, not the absence of impulses, but the power to see them for what they are and decide from a place of clarity. This mastery is not about cutting yourself off from life or becoming emotionless. It is not about suppressing desire or denying your humanity. Instead, it is about bringing presence into every moment so that you engage with life consciously. Anger, when observed, can transform into strength. Fear, when understood, can become wisdom. Desire, when guided, can fuel great creation. The difference between being controlled and being free lies in whether you act with awareness or react unconsciously. A mastered self does not reject life, but integrates it, shaping even the wildest energies into something meaningful. The world will always test you. People will provoke you, temptations will surround you, and circumstances will shift without warning. If you are dependent on the external world to feel balanced, then you are always at its mercy. But when you find the center within, a stillness untouched by the storms outside, you carry your freedom everywhere. This is why nothing external can truly control a person who has mastered themselves. Praise or criticism, gain or loss, comfort or hardship. These things may sway the surface, but the core remains steady. You cannot control what the world throws at you, but you can master how you receive it. Self-mastery also involves breaking the illusion of identity. Much of what controls us are the roles we cling to, the labels we wear: parent, worker, victim, winner, loser. We build cages out of these identities and then suffer when life does not honor them. But when you step back and realize that all identities are temporary masks, you stop being manipulated by them. You are not just your successes or failures, not just your thoughts or feelings. You are the space in which all of these appear. From this recognition, control falls away because there is nothing left to enslave. You do not have to defend an image. You do not have to chase approval. You simply live free and authentic. Another dimension of mastery is silence. The silence of not reacting immediately, not rushing to prove, not feeding every thought that arises. In silence, clarity emerges. When you no longer react automatically, you gain time, space, and perspective. Most conflicts, most regrets, most poor decisions come from the inability to pause. Mastery is hidden in that pause. The moment you choose not to be ruled by the first impulse, but instead act with wisdom. Over time, this silence becomes strength. People may try to provoke you, situations may pressure you, but your silence becomes your shield. You do not need to control others because you have already mastered yourself. There is also surrender at the heart of this practice, not surrender in weakness, but in wisdom. You realize you cannot control life itself. The storms will come, change is inevitable. Death will visit us all. If you fight against this reality, you suffer endlessly. But when you surrender to life as it is, without resistance, you discover that nothing can control you. Pain may exist, but suffering is optional. Challenges may arise, but you meet them with acceptance rather than fear. In surrender, there is profound power, because you are no longer resisting the flow of life. You move with it, and in moving with it, you remain unshakable. To master yourself so nothing controls you is to live with awareness, discipline, honesty, and surrender. It is to see clearly the illusions that bind most people, to step out of the prison of impulses and identities, and to walk with freedom in every breath. The world outside may remain chaotic, but the kingdom within becomes untouchable. And once you reach that place, you discover the greatest truth. The only real power you will ever need is the mastery of yourself. True mastery is not about controlling the world around you. It is about cultivating the inner strength to remain unshaken no matter what happens outside. The illusion most people fall into is believing that freedom will come when they can manipulate circumstances, when they have enough money, when people respect them, when the environment bends to their will. But the reality is that life will always move in unexpected ways. And the more you try to control it, the more you become its prisoner. The only freedom that cannot be taken away is the freedom that comes from mastering yourself. When you anchor into this truth, nothing, no person, no event, no condition can dictate your peace of mind. Think of how fragile life becomes when your happiness depends on the outside world. A kind word lifts you, but a harsh one destroys you. Success excites you, but failure shatters you. Comfort pleases you, but discomfort ruins you. This is not freedom. It is slavery to conditions. To master yourself means stepping out of this cycle entirely. It means building an inner foundation so steady that circumstances may shake the surface but cannot move your core. Imagine a mountain. Storms may howl, rain may pound, winds may rage, but the mountain does not bow to them. Self-mastery makes you like that mountain, rooted in stillness while the world around you continues to change. To reach this state, you must stop identifying with every fleeting experience. You are not your anger, though anger may arise. You are not your sadness, though sadness may pass through you. You are not your desires, though they may whisper loudly. These are temporary waves on the surface of your being. The mistake most people make is grabbing onto these waves, claiming them as their identity, and being tossed around endlessly. But when you observe them with awareness, you realize you are not the wave, you are the ocean itself, vast, unbroken, and untouched by passing storms. In this realization lies unshakable freedom. It is also important to understand that mastering yourself does not mean becoming numb or indifferent. It is not about rejecting emotions or denying desires. Instead, it is about meeting them consciously, allowing them to exist without being enslaved by them. Anger, when mastered, can become energy for action. Fear, when faced, can become clarity and alertness. Desire, when guided, can fuel creation and growth. The difference is that you are choosing how to channel these forces instead of being dragged around by them. That is the essence of true power, not control through force, but direction through awareness. The path of mastery also involves a deep practice of letting go. So much of what controls you are attachments to recognition, to comfort, to how others see you, to how life should be. These attachments keep you bound because they hand over your peace to conditions outside your control. When you let go, you reclaim your power. Letting go does not mean indifference. It means you no longer hinge your well-being on something that can be taken away. You learn to enjoy what comes without clinging, and to endure what leaves without despair. In that letting go, you become untouchable, because nothing owns you anymore. Silence plays a powerful role here as well. When you no longer feel compelled to react immediately, to argue, to prove, to defend, you begin to discover a strength far greater than force. Silence is not weakness. It is mastery over the compulsion to waste your energy on every passing disturbance. In silence, you see clearly. In silence, you choose wisely. In silence, you remain free from being dragged into battles that do not matter. People may provoke you, circumstances may challenge you, but your silence protects your peace. It is the sign of someone who has nothing left to prove because they have already mastered themselves. Discipline is another key pillar. Without it, the mind becomes wild, cravings multiply, and you become a puppet pulled by every passing urge. Discipline is not punishment. It is the structure that allows you to direct your energy with intention. Waking early, training the body, focusing the mind, choosing nourishing inputs, these are not restrictions, but practices of freedom. Each act of discipline strengthens the reminder that you are in charge, not your impulses. The more discipline you embody, the less anything external can sway you because you have already trained yourself to rise above momentary desires. The deepest mastery is not found in resistance, but in surrender. Life will never bend entirely to your will, and trying to make it do so only breeds suffering. The wise recognize that the world is unpredictable, transient, and beyond control. Instead of fighting this, they flow with it. They remain steady, not because life is easy, but because they no longer demand that it be. They surrender to what is, and in that surrender, they discover a freedom unshakable by change. When you live this way, nothing controls you, not people, not opinions, not fears, not desires. You walk through life free, not because the storms have stopped, but because you have found your center within them. That is the essence of self-mastery, to stand unshaken in the face of change, to act from awareness rather than reaction, to let go of what binds you and to move with life instead of against it. The world outside may remain chaotic, but within you there is peace, strength, and freedom that cannot be touched. Mastering yourself so nothing controls you is not about building walls around your heart or pretending to be untouchable. It is about discovering the vast space within you where peace, clarity, and strength already exist. We have walked through the illusions of control, the traps of craving, the storms of emotion, and the masks of identity. Each of these, when left unexamined, becomes a chain. But the moment you turn inward with awareness, you realize the key was always in your hand. The true victory is not in conquering the world, but in conquering your own impulses, your fears, and the endless demands of the ego. When you stop reacting and start choosing, when you no longer cling to what comes or despair at what goes, you become free. The world may still test you. People may still provoke you, but nothing can shake the one who is rooted in self-mastery. Freedom does not arrive when life bends to your will. It arrives when you no longer need life to be any particular way in order to feel whole. That is the essence of mastery. You cannot control the winds, but you can learn to be the mountain that stands unmoved by them. You cannot stop the waves, but you can remember you are the ocean beneath them. The invitation is this: turn inward,